for the first time in 7 weeks. Yes, we're back, Star Trek. And here's what we did not miss. Yeah, can you believe it? It's episode 343 of Trekland Tuesdays Live with me, Dr. Trek, coming at you here from the heart of the new Trekland for some sanity, clarity, and the big picture in all things Star Trek. I gotta say, did you miss me? Have Tuesdays been quite the same? I must at this time take a moment, though, to thank the Academy and Paramount Global for scheduling no new Star Trek during our hiatus. The hiatus was supposed to be 4 weeks, and then silly, naive me, I didn't count on this place needing more clean out. And I don't mean like rotten floor clean out. I mean, no one had lived here. The previous owner of this house had not lived here since 2007. And then they had been in senior care hospice until they died in 2017. So 10 years they lived away. The family was supposed to deal with this place, and they didn't, and they let it drag. And then finally things started happening 2 years ago. So, yes, we're still here in greater SoCal, a little further out, but I'm going to be back in town and researching Trek files and all that stuff in a couple of days. So you ain't chased us out of California yet. But look at this expanse. I don't know if you can tell, I've got expansive room here. I've got a warehouse and an office behind me. And just so you know, I did do a census. Now, just of my truck stuff. Now, I'm not talking about the house and all of our mundane things. I'm talking about just the office here. You ready for this? 2 short metal files, 5 desk drawers that we just wrapped and pulled out. 8 black tubs like, oh, you can't see, but there's one back there supporting that for now. There's a yellow lid. See the yellow lid there in the black? 8 of those. 13 blue Rubbermaid bins with scripts, and the script wall is back. And 157 Trek only boxes of various shapes. Most of them are banker boxes, file boxes. Some a little bigger. I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 poster tubes with various things from blueprints to old posters to probably non-Trek junk. I have to get in and look at them again. Guys, gals, peeps, we had 11 years of things in storage that I knew was there, but I hadn't looked at in ages. So I have what you call maybe a little bit of the assistant script supervisor looked at me and said, "You're getting sick. You're getting a cold." I said, "No, it's from getting into just enough dust to make things interesting." But no, I wore a mask. I remember how to do that too. Wore a mask for a lot of the undoing, unpacking. And gang, I have a lot more to go. I've just been glad to get my shelves up. I mean, there's a reason they build skyscrapers in New York. Anyway, it's been a process. And kids, we're just like, I'm 15%, 20% of the way there. Well, the whole house is that way. You know what it is. We've only physically really been here since about March 5th. So I've been off the air, so to speak, first it was 4 weeks. I naively thought I would scumble this together. We'd get moved on the 1st. And well, it took a trip and a third, which was just as well. And yes, we had a couple of paid movers each way who were amazing and outstanding. And I've yelped and thanked them, and junkers and flooring and all kinds of fun things. So yes, it's been an adventure and a journey. And I've tried to even bounce back the last few days where I'm still madly opening things up. And I got this, you know what? And our new Trekland HQ here may evolve a little bit. In fact, I hope it does. For one thing, we have a new wall coming in to separate the office, studio, warehouse from the dining room. So we're going to put up a new wall with a pocket door, and I don't have all the shelves up yet and I can't finish my video wall back here because we have to get in to make a sidewall. So this is all the blunt truth. So this is going to be a little bit in process, but hey, I wanted to be presentable. I wanted to get my Sunday best on here. as it is now for everybody, because 4 weeks turned into 6, actually 7 weeks, I guess. And here we are. We've gone to daylight savings time. So much has happened. But you know what? So that's what's been going on the Trekland front. Now, this whole time, I gotta say, very proud. I'm gonna skip order today. I hope you didn't let me being off on Tuesday not be your reminder to go catch Trek Files, because the Trek Files has been rolling merrily along. We've had some awesome shows, and yes, there's a new one up today. We're closing in on the end of our 11th season. Season's a half a year. So that's moving along, and we are back on track here. And okay, what else did we miss here? And remember, I'm going to hit the chat soon. But while I'm talking, I hope everybody, if you're new or a veteran TTLer, I hope you let us know how you're doing, where you've been. If you didn't overlap with any other community, or even if you did, jump off and tell us where you're from. What's the weather? How are things there? Because I do hope everything is on this fine Trekland Tuesdays live day. I hope everything is good where you are. In Trekland in general, that's kind of the Trekland HQ home front here. You know what we're still saying? Oh boy, little sagas along the way, including figuring out how to set this up in here for now. I have natural sun. I may actually, for the first time, unblock the windows and use the natural sun. This is not bad. We'll see how it goes without having so much everything leading on the lights. But yeah, this is going to evolve a little bit, just as the original grew like Topsy, as they used to say. Anybody ever heard that phrase before? That'll date you. And can you hear that aircraft? We're not near a commercial airport. Well, we are. We're about 30 miles away. But we're very near March Air Reserve Base, which, historical note, I came very close to using it on the Gene Roddenberry Life Tour. March Field is where Gene Roddenberry took his flight training. So that's how close we are to LA, close but a little distant. For World War II, his commercial, his private training, and then switched over very easily to his military training when the war broke out. And he was obviously in the Army Air Corps and yada, yada. You know all that about Gene's personal biography. So I feel a real Trek closeness here. I have yet to go check out the museum there, but I can't wait. I can't wait to establish a bond there and see what I can learn more about Gene's service here. So there's all kinds of stuff happening. The fresh and the impatience and the frustration to get going. Stop me if you've heard this story before. And for all of you who have survived a move, it would be awesome to sound off in the chat when we circle back in a little bit. It'll be fun to read that. Now, the Portales know I was on hiatus publicly, okay? But we marshaled right along. I've delayed the last month. February's guest night has been delayed, but we marshaled right along with the Ask Dr. Trek roundtables for our primary and our European midday session. And the Portales, hey, thank you for your patience while I was on the road at times, and we shouldered right along and had that. But look at the world we live in now. What has gone on since I've been gone? Well, look, I was on hiatus here, but no, I was not on Trek hiatus. Look, virtual TrekCon happened, so hats off to Ryan and Sirach, and if I start going down the list, I'll fail. Everybody who produced Virtual TrekCon again for the fourth, fifth time. I had 3 panels, 3 events, right? One, we had an awesome thing with Sandy Gimple, who is apparently, I think it's safe to say, is the last surviving member of The Cage, because we talked about The Cage on its 60th anniversary. And I got to talk about how 10 years ago on its 50th anniversary, almost no one knew what I was talking about. Well, the vast majority didn't. And we have flipped that. The conversations of the last 10 years. Now people do know they can start the party in the 4-year and not have to wait until the 6th year every year for Star Trek's birthday. That was awesome with Sandy. I urge you to go back and check out all the Virtual TrekCon panels, including ours. And then Friday, we had the, aside from doing the post LAAP awards, which are a hoot, always full of surprises. Go back and watch the videos if you haven't caught it. And on Friday, we had a special, what's turned into an annual reunion at least, of Life Support Live with my good friend and longtime co-host. Well, 2 years in a pandemic, that'll age you, at 10 a.m. on Saturday Morning Live. Dr. Ali Matu, Dr. Ali and Dr. Trek, one of us is still a real doctor. We had our live reunion on VTC. check that out on the Friday. That was awesome. Got to see a lot of our lifers again. What's even more awesome is since then, since those two events happened, and then Gallifrey one in LA, got to actually go to a live con, a little island of virtual and live events 3 weeks into hiatus, 3 weeks into this Reno Pack and Move madness. Got to see David Gerald flew in again. I got to see a lot of folks just that one day at Galley and did our Token Trek panel. And then back to the grind of packing and moving, but finally had the actual last van sent away and returned moving day on the 4th to the 5th. And what do you know? March 8th, boom, it's Star Trek, it's Creation. It's STSF, Creation's mission Trek to San Francisco. Trek to San Francisco is what they're branding the regional cons that Creation is trying to bring back. Now, they're less than Vegas, but they are ahead of the old days when they would run out and send one person from the office with a cash box to rent 2 rooms in 5 cities every weekend with 1 or 2 guests. You had the dealer room and the not dealer room. The old original Creation model, aside from their big shows. Then that coalesced as Star Trek's audience went down into 4 or 5 regional shows. And Gary and Adam are trying to bring back the regionals. Well, the San Francisco was an experiment, nothing since the 50th. We had the bubble of the 50th, the 5-0 fever. And San Francisco started off as an experiment, but it had such a great reaction that they added to the guest list, they added to the scope. They've since announced a date in Chicago, which has had to be redone because of scheduling problems with all the TNG cast and their agent Gary. That's going to be a different day than what was additionally announced, which was the weekend before Halloween. So watch for a new date on that. Meanwhile, San Francisco happened. And it happened so amazingly. There's a hunger for more Star Trek and Trek Bell. And it's already been announced the end of January, last weekend in January for next year. Now, I'm going on a rant here and praising this because it deserves to be praised. It was a pleasant surprise. I don't know, 20 different actors from across the spectrum. Lots of folks there. The dealer's room, the vendor's room was kind of small because a lot of vendors were skeptical and didn't commit. I bet that changes next year. But meanwhile, this was plenty of elbow room. They sold out the seating for Saturday. So a lot of interest. And the amazing thing, just like Mission Chicago, which will never be replicated again, at least in this near lifetime, the one time Reed Pop did one under their existing license before they walked away from the license and its difficulties. But the fans that were there, forget the fact that there weren't many vendors, forget the fact that it probably belly flopped financially. It flopped as in the world didn't see that as another licensed annual con. In fact, the successor to Vegas being the annual licensed con. In fact, the dynamic is that having a traveling show every year might feel more small d democratic, but the people just love to focus on Vegas. I speak for myself and everyone I know, and we like knowing where everything is every year. Going to a new city every year might seem exciting. It might work for celebrations. Star Wars fandom is so different than Trek fandom in so many ways. That's part of the problem with Reed Pop. Reed Pop does celebration. You point to a city and a date and you say celebration, be there saying that time, that channel, and people go. Trek folks, and correct me if I'm wrong, let me hear it in the chat. Trek folks will say, that's the day, that's the time. Okay, what's it like? Who's coming? It's been 9 months. You've had the same 3 guests on there. I don't think this is really happening. Are you going to just start? I mean, that's the difference. And Reed Pop either didn't get that, or they didn't understand it, or there was so much pandemic turnover. At the same time, there was actually a lot of corporate turnover as CBS/Paramount staffed up. They had turnover too. So a lot of people were turning over and not talking. And so I think those are a lot of the ingredients. I've heard a couple of other things now about why vendors didn't turn up big time. There were some changes in health regulations from Cook County that a lot of vendors said, no, thanks, I'm not going to deal with that. We were coming out of the pandemic. A lot of people weren't pandemic and mask averse. But on just very short notice, like 2 weeks notice, they changed the masking requirements. And a lot of companies, vendors didn't have employees who qualified. It was a 2-week 2 weeks, something on masking and shots, and they told everybody 10 days out. So there was no way to make 2 weeks if you needed to. That was a reason why. The bottom line is that Mission Chicago happened, and it's a big reason why Reed Pop walked away from the license, aside from the fact that Reed Pop was still itself, and the greater Reed trade show group, of which Reed Pop is a slice, they were still reacting from the pandemic too and dealing with it and live events and the spike there. The bottom line, though, is the people who turned up, it was exactly like San Francisco. They didn't know or care that this was the national con and license. To them, they just sit at home and, oh, look, there's a Star Trek convention 10 minutes away or a half hour away or an hour and a half away. It's the same thing in San Francisco. It was amazing how people just came in, and I'd say, oh, have you been to a con? And they say, well, there hadn't been one here, so why would I go to something that didn't exist? The idea of going in a different direction 2 hours away or flying to Vegas, it's like not on the radar, because a Trek convention is when there's one in your town, you go. And that's fine. It's like mid-armchair people. They get up out of their chairs, but they don't travel. They're looking for and apparently just regional sci-fi old school lit cons don't cut it. Maybe they go to a Comic-Con, or maybe it's so not Trek, they only want to go for the Trek and it's not worth the bother and the hoopla. That was exactly, so many people I ran into at San Francisco 2 weekends ago said, I'd say, is this your first con? Do you go to Vegas? Because it's San Francisco, it's Vegas, it's not like Chicago. It's not and so many people say, oh, that's a ways. And they were so cute. They were devout fans. They were thrilled. Well, we hadn't had a convention since 2017. I'm like, well, you could have gone to San Diego. You could have gone to LA. You could have gone to Vegas. You could, and they'd look at you like you're, what? Again, it's adorable. No criticism at all. That's where everybody is in their life and their fandom and, balancing their budgets for that matter. But no, so many people, I'd say something. Oh, yeah, I'm just around the corner. Oh, yeah, I'm just 7 minutes away. Oh, I'm just coming for one day, but I'm 10 minutes away. Oh, we had a booth here, but I can't do one in Vegas because this is only 10 minutes from my house. I just bring it over and bring it back. In fact, the one live that I did from the weekend was an amazing Beatrice, the 11-year-old Star Trek entrepreneur. Her mom brought her up well, but this was, go find my YouTube channel, like and subscribe, and find my chat with 11-year-old Beatrice. She was amazing. And she had her Etsy style, her store. Improbable Meeps? Oops, I've forgotten. Watch the video. Her Etsy store might be open by now, but she had her own art design doodles and caricature cartoons on buttons, on stickers, and on earrings. And she gave Tawny her own Beckett Mariner, her cartoon design earrings. They sold out, but she saved a pair back to give to Tawny Newsom. I mean, it was busy and raucous and fun, but not overwhelming. And I think of San Diego Comic-Con as overwhelming. A lot of people think of Vegas as overwhelming. And this was maybe a fourth or a third the size Vegas. The vendor's room the actors were all signing in one room, so they weren't intermixed, which usually I don't like. But in this case, it was fine because it left the dealer's room in a huge triangle and lots of elbow room, never frantic. Sunday did not die off, as was predicted. The Sunday one-day tickets came in. Lots of people showed up at 1 and 2 and 3 on Sunday, fresh and raring to go, even at my table. So yeah, we picked up a new Portales member, but it was great. Of course, the other end of San Francisco, for me personally, was I had Ali there. We did another life support live on stage for the first time. I'd so wanted to do it. Life Support Live was supposed to be a panel at WonderCon in 2020. Now it was cut down. We only had 30 minutes, and we added a guest for star power on stage. So we had Sirach with us, and we talked. The theme was the resiliency of the resilience of the Ciscos. We had our old format for all of you lifers out there. We had our old format, but it was condensed. It was so condensed. I was so desperate to try to get in a drinking game queue. Not that we endorsed that, but it having a guest and only having the 30 minutes to be, and we were the last thing on Sunday. So a lot of people had left. but we still had a healthy audience. And best of all, it's on video. And I was going to wait till the end of the show, but for all you lifers, our old Life Support Live slot, when was it? 10 a.m. Saturdays. At 10 a.m. Saturday on my YouTube channel, we're going to debut our video with a little surprise added. We're going to debut our video of our Life Support live in-person special with Ciroc on stage with an audience. It's been enhanced a little bit. The cameras didn't pick up the view screens, so we had a minimum of 3 slides aside from the section breaks. Still a K3 factor, still all the pieces are there, and this time with the direct input of Ciroc. That's coming at our old time 10 a.m. Pacific on Saturday on my YouTube channel. Make sure you check it out. So yes, Ali bopped in and we got to meet. I got to introduce Ali to so many people, also including the great Andy Kindred, whose book is now out. You can order it. She had a book launch in Australia, her adopted homeland, the last 40, 50 years. I keep saying she's a force of nature at 80. She's 85 since we first met. It's been 2 years since she was on the Vegas stage. Gary gave her 2 45-minute panels to kick off each day, which is kind of insanely unprecedented. We got to open Saturday. I had 45 minutes with her on stage for a basically whole new audience. I hope they realized what they had. And if you don't know, Andy Kindred was, among many things, a young Black woman growing up. She was a diversity hire by Desilu, by Lucy, after the Watts riots. She says it was like the Ark. There was a female and a male. They didn't make us mate, though. But she very quickly became Gene Coon's assistant, and she was there through the Desilu days of the original series. She's had an interesting life all over. Historically Black founded community in Shankleville, Texas, but lived in Detroit, born just over the border in Southern California, and then grew up all over. Wound up back in LA, wound up being the protege assistant to the late Gene Coon, and then when he died so soon, lost that track. Was also active in I don't just mean active in civil rights. I mean, she was like a worker bee. She drove Dr. King around LA when he came here for meetings. She knew Malcolm. She knew Medgar. All 3 of them she suffered when they were all gunned down differently. But she had firsthand knowledge of that whole era. It's insane that someone had this much connection to this much history and how they overlapped. It's amazing if you ever get a chance to hear her live talk. So that stage, that 45-minute talk was recorded and is going to be up soon. So look for that on my channel. Anyway, just an incredible weekend. I got to introduce Ali to Andy, and I got to introduce Ali to Lolita and a lot of people there. He was only there for about 3 or 4 hours on Sunday afternoon. But busy times for Dr. Ali. Go check out his YouTube channel. It's been renamed. But the overall concept to me is, now maybe it was fresh, and maybe, repetition will stale that a little bit. But the regional concept that demonstrated by San Fran, if there's a population base, if you give it, they will come. And the Chicago show, once it gets grounded again, will be interesting to see how that works. Some of the old creation bases, like outside New York, outside DC, down south somewhere, Nashville was one, maybe a Dallas. But there are 4 or 5 around the country, at least, is what they're aiming to get back to, up to 12. Kind of echoing what they do with Supernatural and just having them annual. The fact that we've got 47 new Star Trek series and actors already retiring. Look at the Picard cast. Look at the Discovery cast, much less the shows in production. And yeah, Melissa Navia was there from Strange New. Lower Decks, I mentioned Tawny. Eugene, they were there. There was a lot of good signing. Walter Koenig was there repping original series. It was awesome. And of course, Terry and Todd Stashwick and Michelle Hurd. Jerry Ryan came in for Sunday. The line was Jerry and Michelle together for photo ops was an amazing line. I've got a video I haven't posted. So to me, was this a one-hit wonder, or will repetition spoil Tab Hunter? I don't know. But it looks like there's some excitement out there. And I'm not doing this just to praise creation. If there are homegrown all Trek or mostly Trek, in the style of Stephen Walker's and Kathy Walker's great Starland cons in Denver, which I know diversified a little bit during the Trek hiatus, the Trek fallow years. But it's possible. For Trek Long Island is happening again. If you're not supporting that, you need to go. It's by logistics, it's a little smaller, but that can't, you know, a 2-lane highway can only siphon you down so much. You can deal with that and get there. Go support the regional cons, no matter who's doing the Trek cons. I'm talking about Comic Cons aren't going to go away unless it's a bozo that only sees dollar signs. They don't get the industry. But Trek or Trek majority cons, if you see somebody local, go in and support them. See what you can do to help. I really think as we have a mature phase, we've got more Trek in the pipeline. And we're recovering from our pandemic paranoia. We're getting out again. There's smart ways to do all this, and there's so much fun. And the people you meet online, you know, you don't have to put all your egg. I mean, Vegas will never not be Vegas. Hopefully, the big, huge Comic Cons, if that's more your thing, like San Diego, around the country, if that's your thing, all for it. But if you fancy a small version of Vegas near you, or maybe at least in your region, that's something to think about. And again, I'm not just praising creation here. Some of the other chain cons and some of the independents. And of course, the coolest of all are your local fan groups that have a nonprofit behind them, and they may have a charity. I mean, the best of the old school fan LitCon tradition where they back a charity, much like SoonerCon is not a TrekCon, never was. BabelCon was a TrekCon. ThunderCon was a TrekCon back for my Oklahoma City peeps. But it's possible to have Trek as a slice of the spectrum, and and go support that as well, if that's what your economy, if that's what your fan base is going to hold up. But I'm just saying, it's going to be interesting to see what the fallout from STS. In fact, look, guys, gals, peeps, it was so successful, it generated its own hashtag STSF. I mean, we had STLV, and we had STLV before hashtags were a thing. I remember in the mid-aughts starting to call Vegas STLV just for shorthand. It was shorter than Trek Vegas. I mean, it was one syllable more, 4 letters versus 3 syllables, but it was shorter. And then suddenly, within a year or two, you put a hashtag on things anyway. Thank you, Twitter. After 2008 or so, yes, we got STSF, which is 1 letter away from ATSF. Which, if you were a train kid like me and a model railroader, ATSF was the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe, and that's what always throws me when I see that now. Speaking of which, there's a Southern California Railroad Museum near me too. Yay. So that's happened while we were away. The great experiment of a regional, yes, creation, but a regional Trek-only con happened, and it was passed with flying colors. Now, will we have sequelitis? Will the sophomore season be as successful? Will the sequels in other cities be? We'll see. But it felt like the local audience, a few people flew in. It was great to see Anne Marie. It was great to see Marina. It was great to see people who flew in. But the vast majority of people at San Francisco were locals who were 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes away. And kind of glad that there was finally a TrekCon they could go to again. Hadn't been one in 7 years. And if you think that's the accent around the Bay Area, it's totally accurate. Totally accurate. Making a point, gang. I'm making a point. So that's all happened. And then on top of all that, yes, thank you, Paramount Global, for having new Fresh Trek. But we have Fresh Trek on the way. In fact, it's a finale season of Discovery on the way. The South by Southwest premiere, nice move, corporate, to get out of LA and New York. I mean, I miss having a premiere here, but nice move to have it in the middle of the country at South by Southwest. Can't knock that. And people getting it. And yes, it can now finally be said, no spoilers here. Turn down the sound if you don't want to hear it. Discovery Season 5, whoever came up with this idea is brilliant, is basically a sequel to The Chase. In literally the title, the TNG episode, and literally that same feeling of bopping around the galaxy after clues. And who do you run into along the way? Who's involved? There's still a few things that aren't out there that I know are coming. It's sad because I wonder at the bottom line, if you've been reading the reviews, you'll know what the tone and all this is. And to answer your question, gang, I've been in the moving, packing, reno, unpacking, remodeling tunnel. I've had my screeners since before San Fran, and no, I've not watched them. So yes, scream at me right now. That's on my list to start in on this weekend. But there's been so much out there already. You've read the reviews already. And yes, we'll be restarting Second Opinion. And I will be there every week with a Second Opinion segment on Saturdays. Right? Dr. Trek's Second Opinion. My reaction show. When you've heard everybody else, you got the quick take, you got the fast take, the hot take. You want to wait for Dr. Trek's Second Opinion a couple of days later when the dust settles. That's coming too. But I will say, I'm wondering in hindsight, or I'm pre-shadowing, whether people will eventually say of this season, which was not meant to be the final season, remember, they were canceled, didn't get their sixth season as all intended, filmed a couple of weeks of a little prologue at the end, epilogue, I guess, to finish it off, the season of the series off. We'll have to see what all that entails. But people will be saying, and I wonder if this will be true, if Discovery, for different reasons, though, will have the Enterprise effect. And by that I mean people to this day, especially those who weren't there live and they're just seeing Enterprise as a wall o icons on their binge panel, if they will say, why did they cancel the show when it got so good? Will Discovery Season 5 be good enough? Will it blow people away so much, and dare I say it, feel more like mainstream Trek? Will it feel that way that people will marvel in years to come that why did they kill Discovery just when it was settling in and getting good? Now, I know, and I keep discovering how there are those out there who love the first two seasons of Discovery, not the latter part. There are people who only love the second, after the jump to the future, and don't care for the first. I've seen people who love the second season and not the first. Or people who love the fourth season and not the third. I mean, it's all over the place. It's going to take a while to assimilate this, but I'm just wondering right now, I'm going on record to say, will someday people look at Discovery in its 5 short seasons the way people look at Enterprise in its 4 26-episode seasons, old school, and either way say, why did they cancel it when it was really getting good and hitting its stride? That's the diplomatic thing. When it's hitting its stride. That's a question. Anyway, Discovery is coming. The early reviews are out. I can't wait to get into mine. I can't wait to get back in the Dr. Trek Second Opinion saddle with you and do that. In fact, that reminds me, I've got 4 Cadet Alice episodes that I haven't released yet. We're all still waiting to see when Prodigy's season 2. And what's amazing is the season 2 is a foregone conclusion. What we've got to do is gin up the Netflix numbers so that we're all talking about a season 3. People have been so worried about and we've talked about this before. This was before my hiatus. It's not about finally getting a home for season. I mean, it was, but it was going to happen. Finally getting a home for season 2. It's really whether that new home is going to chime in for a season 3. And of course, we're all waiting to see what happens. I'm waiting to see on the timing. Now I'm thinking they don't have to. They're different networks, different channel apps, streamers. But I'm really hoping Netflix is smart enough not to try to intrude on the spotlight of Discovery and waits till after Discovery's 10-week run, right? Or bask in the glow of its finale and chime in at the right moment and do that. That'll be into summer by then, late June, July. And its 10 weeks will be overlapping probably the start of Lower Decks. Okay, again, different network, but that's the sweet spot to be. We'll see if that's happening. Most of all, gang, real news happening just this last couple of weeks. We got through hot strike summer, hot labor summer in Hollywood last year. The writers and the actors finally kind of slapped around the producers, AMTPT, to get rid of this fairy tale land of streaming and get back down to the nuts and bolts of adjusting this adjusted world to fit real people, real workers, at whatever the skill, a lot of it overlapping, a lot of it precise to whatever, whether it's writers or actors or whoever. And yeah, the whole issue of how AI is going to affect all the different crafts within this entertainment industry. And the IAMTP, which is the International Association of Theatrical Stage, IATSE employees. I know, even though it's not stage, but it sounds stage. You always hear about IATSE. IATSE has a different guild for each craft that's within its umbrella. So the different guild, the different locals aren't so much local in the old sense as they are the cinematographers, right? The DPs have their own guild. The art directors have their own guild. The props people have their own. The wardrobe and costume people have their own local. So all the different, there's 13, I believe, 13, and there's about to be a couple more. Visual effects artists are finally getting organized. There's another one that's new to IATSE that's getting organized. The first local is getting organized as well. People had never been unionized and they're coming in. That was a byproduct of long, hot labor summer. All the different, since IATSE is such an umbrella, all of the different divisions like that, the different crafts, have a few days with the producers to produce. So that's gotten started. And this week, as we talk, I think it's the cinematographers are up first. Yeah, they all caucus together. They started Monday, as in yesterday. There's 13 West Coast studio locals, I should say. Not sure about the East Coast. Okay. So first up were the International Cinematographers Guild under IATSE and the Art Directors Guild going first. Later this week, the editors, the film editors, and Local 729. I mean, there's grips. There's all the gaffers and electricians. They're all in IATSE too. Again, 13 different locals. Each of you drive down Olive in Burbank and you pass at least 3 or 4 IATSE local offices there, right? Makeup and hair have their own guild. Had their own guild and their own division within their own local within IATSE. Everybody's going to have a focus. Now, those talks are set to go through April 29th. Will we actually have a banging of heads impasse? Will the producers not have learned anything from last year that they've got to apply the streaming model to the current world and let their people have functioning lives and not hoover up all the money for their high-paid CEOs? Did they learn the lesson? Can Hollywood survive another after the pandemic, after the strikes? No, it can't. And it's not just Hollywood. It has the ripple effects. Vancouver, Toronto were affected, even though they're Canadian. But I mean, New York primarily, but like Atlanta, New Orleans, around all the places around that have a film community burgeoning are still affected by this. What will be the outcome this way? Come April 30th, will there be a strike authorization? Will there have been a strike authorization if the talks are going south, as was done by both the guilds last year, SAG and WGA? Will there be a strike authorization as a negotiating tactic to say, hey, we're serious, Bucky? Now, after last year, I don't know how anybody needs to say we're serious. And IATSE came within this much of calling a strike vote for these same issues 2 years ago. These are 3-year contract cycles. It went flying by the radar because we were still in the middle of a pandemic. We were still coming out of pandemic, barely baby steps, when all this was going down before. And something in the math, there was a majority voted for strike, but it's like the electoral college of the whole thing wound up not being a majority. So they were ahead of the curve. But, it's just the cinematographers, and it's just the grips and the gaffers, and it's just the makeup artists. So who are the power brokers there? It's not the directors, the writers, or the actors. But they were ahead of the curve. They saw this coming. I don't even think AI was in the mix then. But everybody gets, even when you're on a design, the art directors, visual effects, are you kidding me? How that comes, well, I take that back. Visual effects is not, they have their society, and that's not happening. Well, it may start happening now. But point being, people are so alerted and up for AI as a tool versus AI as a replacing whole swaths of the economy, and being alert to that and losing your identity and your creativity to it. Are you stealing an actor's likeness? Are you stealing a writer's work? Are you stealing an artist's creativity with AI? That's all part of the landscape too. So that's happening now. That's not something we missed in the last 7 weeks, but the IATSE talks are happening now, and we'll be following that over the next few weeks, probably talking about it here more than once. Maybe have somebody. I'm going to see. We've been so blessed to have Star Trek people we had Dave Goodman and a lot of the local captains like Captain Cisco Carlos and Bill Wolkoff. We had people on the pickets and Dave Goodman in the leadership of the Writers Guild. We had the great Michelle Hurd kind of being the spiritual successor to Armin Shimmerman, our Trek seat unofficially on the labor committee of SAG. I got to poke around and see if we have any Star Trek highlights on, and maybe somebody in the chat even knows already if we've got a Star Trek notable on one of the IATSE up in his or her own IATSE local guild. We'll see. We'll see what that looks like. We'll see if it goes that far. Hopefully the process works. Everybody agrees. They trust each other, and we have a contract without having to go to a strike. Especially after last year. We'll see, and we'll see what the pressure weighs on people differently. Whoa. Did I cram in too much today? Guys, I'm pent up. It's been 7 weeks. I haven't talked to you. And yes, the live events were great, but we were always like so focused. And there's a little bit of big picturing going on at the live events. The other thing was I was just so in the tunnel of renoing or packing or moving or dealing with whatever, flooring people, electricians, plumbers, that it was hard to take a step back and look at a big picture. So yes, thank you for joining me. I think I'm certainly into some better sanity right now, which is leading to some clarity in my big picture for Trek. And I can't wait to get back and start talking about it. I don't want to get ahead of the game, but I'm coming up. I'm going to be a guest on Mission Log Live in a couple of Mondays. So you want to, of course, be checking that out. All the podcast folks, it's been interesting to watch what the hiatus has done to some of the shows. Again, Trek Files is marching right along. And finally, before we take our break here, I just want to, if you did not hear the news, after all these years, after all the years of Sea Trek and Trek crews turning up, no. And then these first 7 years, finally, and I don't mean that in a lots of things are happening. All in good time, my dear, all in good time. I'm so excited to be a guest, a host, a moderator, and a presenter at next year's Star Trek cruise. So many fans have been bugging me about it, have been bugging ECP about it for ages. Things cycle through. What a great next year. The theme is going to be a Voyager spotlight on its anniversary year. What are we at? 25 years? 95? 30 years. 30 years of Voyager. But there'll be all the shows will be all the series, all the casts will be represented. And incredible background folks, right? So I'm thrilled to be joining that legion. I'm thrilled to be doing my thing about getting the stuff out of other people and presenting and doing surprises. The cruise has grown to be it's the only licensed event now from the studio, Paramount Global. And I'm so excited that's next February. And then, of course, we've got the rest of the year of Trek to look forward to. Everything going on. And yes, I can't wait to get into that second season of Prodigy and get Cadet Alice here in the new studio and watch us some season 2 and bring you some new Cadet Alices as well. It's a bright, shiny year. We're here in March. And to me, I did live to survive the other side of the tunnel and be back with everybody on Tuesdays and for many Tuesdays to come. It's going to be an interesting, fantastic year for Trek, I know already. And some wild things happening here for me and everything in Trekland. Some new tweaks coming along. Can't wait to tell you about down the line. But for now, everything is steady as she goes. We have the helm. We have the con. And yeah, yeah. Meanwhile, there's some fodder. What did I look up here? Oh my God, what's been happening here with cons and live, right? DSC. How about your thoughts on regional cons and IATSE in talks? Are we going to have a strike? What do you think will happen? What do you think's happening on Discovery? Those of you who have got your screeners, or those of you who are at the preview in Austin, maybe saw some more. Um, those of you who never thought about going on the cruise, but now you're going to, by God, because Larry's a guest. Yeah, right. No, let's make this a chat for the ages today, okay? It's so good to be back with everybody. It's so good to be in this studio that's going. I say studio. It's the office. It's only been the last 10 years that your office had to be a studio as well. So it's going to be the same but different here. We'll keep evolving, and I'm just admiring this new angle of sun. That's going to do it. If you were watching us later on YouTube, thank you so much for being here. Don't forget you can still do super chat contributions, but the best thing you do is just like and subscribe and share. It's a crime that there are yahoos with 1.5 million subscribers. And I like to think we do a lot here with you at Trekland. So please subscribe, like the channel, and share it. And you know what? If you're watching us later, maybe find a way sometime, maybe on the holidays, maybe on a day off, summer break, join us live and jump in. And, sound off when you can. Lurking is fine. Lurking is fine right now. Sound off when you can. What's amazing also is while I've been either on hiatus or we had monsoons in LA, I've had lots of people talking about Trekland Treks. Yeah. So I'm settled. Still a thing. If you're in LA, Greater SoCal, and want to take your own customized away mission, pick from among 50 sites. We'll go to 4 in a day. Have a quick lunch. I'll be your chauffeur, but I'll also be your cosplay handler, wrangler, props, whatever it is you want to do at your sites. We'll work it out ahead of time. You'll have an awesome day. You might even have 2 back to back. There's no law against it. Check it out, treklandtreks.com. Get in touch with me. Apparently, 2024 may be the comeback year for people to do their location touring here in LA. And it's already turning out to be a busy year setting up. Can't wait to get back into that. Of course, what I really can't wait to do is to thank, all of our Patreons coming through with us. So thank you. Thank you, Diana Hopkins. Thank you, Robin Wilson. You guys who all jumped the hiatus chasm with me. Lawrence Todd. And we had some new ones too. Yeah. Josh Patton, Justin Porteous, Glinda Bruton, Chris Jiggins, Pranakasha Productions, Comedy Forecast, Andrew Jazemski, and our live wires. Robert McLean, Byron Bailey, J.R. Poole, Haberd Gunnjonson, Alan Ho NC, Dave Gregory, Tobias Rex, Donna S. Runyon, Greg Wickstrom, one of our later ones, and Casey Shafsky, who I got to see at San Francisco. Big hugs, old timers. And a lot of people got to meet the real Casey Shafsky in person. Yes, he's a real person, Scott. Yes, Ali, he's a real person. No, that was a bunch of fun. And of course, if you want to jump in on my simple Patreon for now, it's $5 and $10 a month. It's just a way to support what we're doing here. Help me grow the channel, which has been a pretty good steady growth of what we're doing. The concept of $5 and $10 a month for a shout out. $10. Yes, folks, now that I'm settled, we'll get back on sharing the back catalog, early archival interviews from Portal 47 that even the later day Portal 47ers haven't seen. So, patreon.com/Trekland Live. Love it if you could jump in and support us the way Patreon is set up to do. I mentioned it earlier, the Trek Files. Chugging along every week. No hiatus for the Trek Files, although we're nearing the end of season 11, and then we'll have our typical month off. Still happening. John Champion, I think that's a name you know. Looking at, with me, Gene's reply back in those 80s days of fighting, negotiating, struggling, notating the TOS original movies. This week, his notes on Star Trek V to Shatner and Harve Bennett. You wouldn't want to miss this. Of course, the document is there on our Facebook page every week. You can get the audio anywhere, and please do. But the comments And the docs are at our Facebook page, facebook.com/roddenberry.com. Socials still the same. Yes, I'm still on X, Twitter, at Larry Nemecek. Okay. It's still Larry's Trekland or Larry Nemecek Trekland on Facebook. Thank you very much. And Instagram. Please jump over there. I've been sharing a lot from the move and the reno, and I think some of them are kind of funny. It was just a very sharing time. Get the Instagram panel and check it out. And of course, YouTube. And if you want to join us in the portal as we gear back up for some more regular guests and everything else, it's portal47.net. We'd love to have you jump in with us in the portal. It is like a mini con all year long, no matter where your center seat is. But yes, I want to put a shout out. I was doing a lot on Instagram, reels and things. And for those of you who may want to know, if I could tilt the camera down, I would. I'd mess things up. But my drawer stays closed now. Check your levels is good advice for more than podcasts. All right, everybody. Hey, look, it's still an election year. There's still stuff happening in the world, Trek and otherwise. So please, 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 even if you're unpacking old boxes in your new home, mask wearing is the original good idea. Whatever's going on near you, please, please stay healthy, right? Do all the things. And you know me, when I say stay woke, I mean check the sources. Check the sources in case it's crap, and be open to the things that no one ever told you before, and try not to get too angry that you never knew about it. Yeah, that's what I mean when I say SW. All I'm really trying to say, folks, is